Okay, so, um, welcome to something I want to take a crack at, which, it's going to be a new series called Casually Explained. What I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to explain a few classes that some people may be curious about and clear up some misconceptions and talk about some things I may have heard in regards to the class, so on and so forth. So, the subject of the day is going to be the fabled and mysterious, hit and run Elementor. Long story short, it's a build that is super simple, full intelligence. You run around, smack enemies, basically play the world's most deadly game of tag with, a group of monsters that's, doing their best to murder you. Now, that being said, what what makes what makes up a hit and run Elementor? Well, it is you need access to one particular spell, and that spell is Windfield. As you can see, right here in the tooltip, it says it reduces speed by 50%. That is the only way you're going to be able to outrun what is essentially, an angry mob. Now, you don't have to play an Elementor this way, but it certainly is what I find fun. And I feel like that is, in essence, what it is. What I think the class is fun. I am why I call this series. Am going to call this series casually explained is because take a look. Plus five wins. That is easy to do these days. Like I'm not rocking Intrets, my tears. I probably should grab some for one of my other characters, but that's not the point right now. This is a +3 set. This isn't even pierced. Long story short, what I'm getting at is I'm not somebody that's going to min max the game. I'm going to play things the way I want, and I'm going to do things how I want. So this is more of a, from my personal opinion, kind of a standpoint. Now, what do I think makes a hit and run Elementor a little bit more special than a typical AoE class? It is that you get to understand the AoE system like the mob mechanics better than any other class. And what I mean by that is mobs in this game, especially when you're an AoE class, operate under two things that was not there in the original game. The first thing is they operate on distance, which that's always been a thing, you know, but the second part is what I find is super interesting. And I guess the third, but I'll get to that one in a second. So the second thing is they also operate on a timer. And what I mean by that is if you kite them around for long enough, just like if you took the mobs too far out of their engagement zone, they will break off and reset. Which I understand what I'm going to talk about something that I heard when I first wanted to pick up this class and was talked out of it. What I was told was they nerfed the hit and run Elementor into the ground, which when I think about that, I see what they mean. But I'm going to talk about how it used to be played back in the, versions of the game that I remember way back when. So, this class, way back when, you would take it and head to the highest thing that existed at the time, which was the Pop Crank Boys right here, or whatever you wanted to throw hands with over in this direction. But you would go to the highest level enemy, and you would do next to 0 damage. Well, you would do a decent bit of damage, but it would be like you would still take like 30 to 45 minutes to do a pull because, level differences and all that. Point is, but they weren't operating on a timer, so you could do that. You could level up way quicker than almost any other class because you weren't constrained to the same rules as them. You could basically skip most of the grind up until you got to this point without ever needing to change your build, change your armor, change anything. But since they added, the timer to the mobs and everything, it basically nerfed what the class could do. It made it far more in line with other classes that do the same thing. I don't hate that change because I considered this absolutely cheesing the game, and if that's an unpopular opinion, I'm sorry, but I mean, like, yeah, it's the same thing as the old Reflect Elementors who would run up here too, just to get, have enemies off themselves by doing copious amounts of damage. I don't even know if that still works. I would like to give it a try, but I don't know. So the third thing is that they put very a lot more strict damage penalties on fighting things that are too far out of your level range. Like for example, I'm level 75, right? So I could try to fight. So I'm currently AoEing and doing my grind sessions at the Watonkas. Okay, I do about 3,000 damage, 3,200 per spell cast. But that's with the 15% added damage from duh, 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 this from the achievement. So if I didn't have that, it would be about 2,900, give or take. Now, that is just barely on the limit of a lot of the mob's timers. I know because I did this at level 74 where I was doing that kind of damage, and if I wasn't gathering up 5 or 6 monsters, I was still going to die. Or not die, but they were still going to break off because I wasn't killing them fast enough. But I'm not going to explain get into the nitty gritty details because it's not as important for you to know that much about it for what I'm trying to explain. But the antiquaries, um, like if I were to try to attack them, even with the elemental advantage on my side of using wind against earth, I would still be lucky if I did 2,000 damage per spell cast at best, because they imposed super harsh penalties on damage. It used to be that way back in the old days, but it used to be a lot less severe. So, for example, if you were to do the old pop crank strategy, or the strategies of Eld, you could still do a respectable amount of damage, so on and so forth, and still get the job done. Now, these days, it's impossible, and around 9 or 10 levels is about the max you can do before the game starts fighting you back on it. Which I don't hate the change because again, it brings the class more in line with what one would expect. I don't think it's been nerfed into the dirt because I'll be real with you, I was level 73 a couple of days ago, and in 2 hours, I was able to get to this point. I mean, the class is still very effective, but um, long story short, um, I've shown you the build. I've shown you the skill that you'll need. There's not really much else to explain, but I want to go ahead and do one more thing real quick before I wrap this up, and that is I want to give a brief demonstration of what this class is capable of. And I'm not going to like if somebody wants a follow-up video where I just, do nothing but explain or showcase the level differences in terms of spell power and whatnot, I can do that. But I'm just gonna give a different demonstration because this video is actually going to replace a different one on my channel, and that was the one demonstration I did for this class a while back. Right, forgot that actually has to. Can you work? Uh, by the way, 60% chance of the debuff activating, and it only affected 1 out of 4 so far. 2 out of 4 now. A wondrous display that was. Alright, one more, and then I'll call it good. Good, it wants a better spawn, so I can better explain. Let's just hope that the actual debuff works this time. Okay, it got one, or got... Oh! There's also, one more system change that I did wish to mention. That also makes this class a bit harder to play. But I won't be demonstrating it here because it'll... hard to explain. Okay, cool. Now that the demonstration is out of the way, I'll talk about it. So, one last thing to note is you also can't go too ham on your pulls because for the amount that you pull, because this game also introduced a herd system, which will start nerfing your damage past the point, like depending on how many monsters you grab. It cuts your damage from past like 9 or like 10, it's like 30%. Then past that, it's 50, and then so on and so forth. I've seen 50 at max, but usually pulls don't get bigger than like 12 or 15 before, either your timer runs out or, you've ran too far. So, yeah. But basically, I see what they were trying to do when they made FlyFF Universe, and that was try to make it to where, like, you know, AoE classes weren't the same broken, mess that they were in the past. They're still good. Like, this was a pretty... I mean, I thought I did pretty decently with no buffs at all. I've got my Ringmaster here in the back that I'm probably going to break out to level with my Ranger later, but that's not the point. I could have brought him in and done a much better demonstration, but that's not the point. Long story short, this was a brief, a very casual player's explanation of how a hit and run Elementor works. I hope I did the explanation justice, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. But for now, that's it for me. I hope that this was informative, and you might decide to pick up the class yourself. I think it's a great time. Yeah, that's it for me. I might get back with another video here soon. But we'll see. Take care of yourselves. I'm out. Bye.